Hello, everyone. We're back again today with another video, a top 10 movie list. This is 1991 here with Brian, Massey's Maine Entertainment, and Doc. We've been doing this series for a couple months now. We're working our way through from 1980 to 1999, taking each year, compiling our individual favorite 10 movies of the year and one worst movie. We have a tandem video on Brian's channel, Massey's Maine Entertainment. That'll be linked below, where we're doing perfect albums, 1965 up to the present 1991. Check them all out. They'll all be individually linked. You can go pick out any year that you may have missed or anything that spikes your fancy. And also Spotify lists as well to go with it. So if there's a song or two that you're not familiar with, check them out. We'd like you to enjoy the whole package we're putting together here. It takes time and effort, but very rewarding. We get a lot of feedback, a lot of comments, and we appreciate all the regular viewers. So Brian and Doc, 1991, interesting year for movies. Just a quick overall theme here. What do you think going into it? Solid?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely getting more complete. The lists are getting to be more complete in regards to movies that I would find rewatchable, towards the bottom of my list than they were in the 80s. And they'll continue to progress. The quality of the movies, I think, are going to continue to progress. So 91's like that first year where I'm going, yeah, it's getting a little bit better.
Yeah, I think we're in for some big years. 93 and 94 in particular are going to be really, really standout years.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a looking forward thing, but yeah, Brian's got it covered there, man. That's 91 is 91 is 91, man. The top of the list looks pretty solid to me.
Yeah.
As you float through, yeah, there's a lot of good, solid movies. And that's where I found it to be more, I pull away from certain things, and this is more focusing on the movie aspect of movies, I think, and that's what we're starting to see in 91, and I like it a lot. So as we move.
Yeah, and as always, we don't know each other's lists going in. It's always fun to see them as they're revealed, and we always make side bets on the side just to see how many trifectas we think we'll get. And the over-under today is 4. We'll see what happens with that.
4 is the nut. 4 is the nut.
Yep.
Rich. So
are we going over? Are we going under? Are we going right at the number? We'll find out as we go. Anyway, the order today is Doc, Brian, and myself. Let's do it. Doc, what do you have for your 10 favorites of 1991?
Right out of the gate, I'm going to go with my number 10 of 91 is going to come in with Guilty by Suspicion. It's going to be my number 10. I find that this year has a lot of different vibes to it in one sense, but I find there are a lot more drama-driven movies in a lot of senses. So, which I like. I like good acting. I like good stories. I like that kind of stuff too. It really rises to the top. And this is Robert De Niro and Annette Bening. That's going to be a name you're going to hear throughout my list. Pretty solid year in my eyes from hearing, but about the blacklist in Hollywood back during the Cold War in the 40s and what it actually meant to people that were in the Hollywood business and the industry. And that's Robert De Niro's character and government getting involved. Hollywood and the Cold War don't really mix, I don't think. So that's what this story is based around, and what people actually went through that were labeled as communist, shall we say, in Hollywood, and how it affected their careers for not just a year or two. We're talking like, 15, 20, 25 year span of people's lives being ruined.
Yep.
With nothing substantial behind it. So there's a lot of garbage there. So Guilty by Suspicion is just that. It's guilty by suspicion. So great performances. De Niro's solid as a rock, man. And I think we all love that guy anyway. So
yeah.
Number 9. I picked this movie more based on just the performance in the movie, if you want the truth. I think the movie has some holes in it and stuff like this. I've got The Doors coming in at number 9 for me. I can see it being a lot higher on some people's lists that would really dive into a lot of the aspects. I find there's some holes in the movie. I can get past that very quickly with Val Kilmer. I think incredible. I don't even know what to say to this. The dragging parts and stuff like that, even inside the movie, he still keeps you, locked on, and you're focused on him through the whole thing, man. This is the Doors. This is Jim Morrison. He sings, for crying out loud. He's doing the Jim Morrison that really is Jim Morrison through this whole movie. I said, I don't think the movie's perfect in some senses, but I do love the acting performance in this. And it's a really good movie, don't get me wrong. And you can watch it and come out with a lot of learning about what really Jim Morrison was like as a human, I think, and a performer, and kind of a tragedy life that he lived too. He was very alone, even, Meg really was just a sidekick, maybe not the best, but whatever the case. The movie itself, I think, stands on its own, just as with Val Kilmer playing Jim Morrison in The Doors. So that's going to be my number 9. Number 8. Now, this one might have a little bit more overacting in one sense, but I still like the movie and I still like the meaning behind it. So I got Bugsy coming in at number 8. I like Warren Beatty. Warren Beatty, I think, in the right roles, he can be very comedic, and he can be very, he always seems like so hyper sometimes. That's what the character himself, as he plays it as Bugsy, is hyper. He's that kind of person, and he's a real mobster dude, and no scruples. But somewhere in there, he's always got the right plan for what he wants to do and stuff like this. And it builds around, he's a mobster, he's a killer, and everything else that goes with it. He's the guy that started Las Vegas, and this is the story about it. So literally setting up a city out in the middle of the desert and setting up the Flamingo. Once again, Annette Bening, they might have met on this. I don't know. I can't remember. But like I said, you've heard her name twice already, and we've only done 3 movies. So I think it's a solid movie. I like that kind of stuff. It's a big Hollywood kind of flick, man. And pretty good supporting cast throughout the whole thing too. So Harvey Keitel, I think, is pretty good in that movie as well. My number 7, I got Regarding Henry, number 7. This is really high on the list for me for Harrison Ford performances as an actor. And like I said, I thought this was drama and acting driven in this year. I like that kind of stuff. He was a certain kind of person before something happened in this movie where it changes, alters his life. And it physically alters him, and it does that kind of stuff. And I find when you see that from an actor, Harrison Ford makes even facial expressions sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, you can just do like a little squirt or something like this. And meanwhile, it's almost like a sensitive or a realistic, almost not trying to be realistic, but so realistic at the same time kind of acting. I think it's, like I said, I think it's probably maybe his best performance as an actor. It's a pretty solid movie after, some tragedy happens, gets shot, changes his life, and turns out he wants to be a different man throughout his life after that, if he can get through it. So I think Regarding Henry is one of his underrated kind of movies, if you want the truth. Number 6.
Was Annette Bening in that as well?
I think so.
Yeah. Doc.
3 out of 4, Doc.
You want to tell us stuff?
That was looking pretty good in 91, man. So
Doc's the charter member of the Annette Bening fan club, obviously.
Right.
I get into something quirky with not Annette Bening is not in this next movie. I swear.
Okay.
It's Judy Davis,
Okay.
but it's not
Just
Annette Bening. Okay, so. But I got the Coen brothers, Barton Fink, coming in at number 6.
Nice.
I think my next couple are kind of quirky kind of flicks. I love the quirkiness of these movies. These next ones I'm going to talk about. This fits more the bill of the Coens that I grow into more. I think this is it's one of those movies you watch the first half of the movie, you go, what the frig am I watching kind of thing. It's almost like it's taking me on a weird kind of twisted kind of thing. I don't know what's going on. Wallpaper's falling and all this other stuff. And he's a writer and he's trying to make it in Hollywood. And John Goodman seems like some sort of whack neighbor. And it's like, and then you're expecting something to happen, and it actually, that 180 does take place, and it's like, what the hell's going on now? So, and that's the Coens, man. That's what I love about their movies, especially as we move forward now. I find that this kind of stuff is next level stuff for them. I think it takes them up a notch. In my books, this is where they start to take off. John Turturro's fantastic. John Goodman's great in this movie too. So Twisted, Cohen flick, man. Barton Fink, really, really good. Terry Gilliam is a quirky dude himself. So number 5 is The Fisher King for me, man.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I like this movie for a long time, a really long time. I always thought it was quirky and odd for a lot of things, but the more you watch it and the more you see it, even as you get older and stuff like that, Jeff Bridges is very good in this movie, and so is Robin Williams. The acting is very good. The tragedies or the one effect that one person has on another, not even knowing it, how it comes around full circle is. We've seen movies like that, and this is just another example of how it can actually be out there and affect somebody and you not know it. So say something on the radio and 5 years later, this guy's life is ruined because of something that you said to somebody else. So Fisher King, it's always been quirky. It's always been a thing, but there's a lot of undertone and meaning and self-reflection kind of movie you could want in a movie is in this movie. So this could float for me anywhere, man. I think The Fisher King's a very, very good movie. So it's making my top 10. I've got it at number 5. Number 4 is Boyz N The Hood. So this is the beginning for John Singleton here, and he wrote it and directed, talked about his reflecting on his childhood, basically, on different things here with Ice Cube and Lawrence Fishburne and Cuba Gooding. Just a bit, it's almost like an oppression and stuff like this. This is very relevant, obviously, still to this day, about what happens in society, with cops and everything else too, at one level or another, and the gangs and stuff like that, and the segregation that happens in society and in different parts of wherever we live. And it focuses on it. It tells a great story around it. It shows the realism behind it as well. And Cuba Gooding is not winning anything with me and stuff like this, but he's very good in this movie. He really is.
Yeah,
it's very young.
Mhm.
Ice Cube, very good. And Lawrence is Lawrence, man. And you can base it on so many different things, but the acting's fantastic. The script is great. The way it's shot is top notch, man, because you're on suspense in some parts here too, man. So Boyz N The Hood. Yeah, it's a placement thing. Where do I put it in 91? So I'm happy I went back and revisited this one recently, and I think I got it in the right spot for me anyway. Number 3 is JFK. It's got a great cast. Costner, Donald Sutherland's great in it. Gary Oldman is Lee Harvey Oswald. Tommy Lee Jones, Joe Pesci. It's got a cast of thousands here. It's an Oliver Stone movie. It just shows you. I mean, if you like these kind of things, right? This is obviously based on the assassination of JFK here in November, 63. If you're into conspiracies or anything like that, or even if you're not, or if you want to just get a quick history lesson, you can pick and choose what the hell you want to pick out of this movie, because it's giving you so many options on what you think may or may not be there. You could be pulled in 3, 4, 5 different directions on what might have happened that day and who may or may not have been involved. And he kind of just leaves it to the audience to decide on how they want to take it. Exactly. Which I think is, the president was assassinated. And if you can leave those kind of open kind of questions, write a movie about it, 30 some odd years later almost, and have everybody still questioning it 40 years later after that, you made a great movie, man. That's what I can tell you. So yeah, JFK is my number 3. It's personal favorite at number 2 now. You guys could see this one coming a mile away, right? So it's T2. So it's Terminator 2. The sequel to Terminator, which I think is one of the best sci-fis that we've seen, and going to make a lot of people's list, makes mine. It's a great sequel. The switcheroo that was happening, that sometimes you didn't see it coming, right? Sports is coming back as the good Terminator, and Robert Patrick is the bad Terminator. This is sci-fi movie making in 91 from James Cameron. I've talked about him before being a visionary dude, man. Freaking right he is. This guy's showing you something different every time you watch a movie of his. this is 91. He's showing it again. He moves the needle on how you watch sci-fi flicks, man, or anything that's got, CGI in it. He's the guy. So before we get to the number one, I have to drop the piece of crap, right?
Yes.
Right.
Man,
Does it
there's
have a
some-
net bending in it? Hold on.
What's
Okay.
that?
No,
No,
we're just
no.
checking if it has a net bending in it first.
Just making sure.
Okay.
What I can tell you is Rocky's in this one, okay? Oscar is the worst movie of the friggin' year for me. That is, I don't know what to say about this movie. I say this every time. Do I want to do a deep dive on Oscar on why it's so crappy? I just think it's Stallone being the humorous gangster. Talk about a lame story, man. I can't get into the fiance and the daughter and all this other. It's not meant for him. If I was to say anything about the friggin' movie, Stallone should not be in this movie. You could have had Joe Schmo be in this movie, and it would have been solid B flick somewhere. I don't know. There's lots of choices. Hudson Hawk came out this year, which is really technically, it's kind of crappy, man. I can't get around it. That guy writes some pretty good movies, but for the worst, Oscar just misses on everything. That's me.
Great pick. Great pick.
And they tried to make that a movie. I hope that makes sense, right? That was a real movie. That came out in the theaters, man. Freaking somebody spent money to see that.
Yeah.
I don't think I can get around number one not being Lamb Chops. Silence of the Lambs, man. Freaking what I tell you, man. No.
Great.
Well, I think we all know the movie, man. We got a great cast. We got a great story. Jodie, Anthony Hopkins, Scott Glenn is her boss. Buffalo Bill, let's go catch him. Hannibal Lecter, let's use him to see if we can figure out the way this other guy thinks. And Jodie Foster being the behavioral FBI agent, try to put these pieces together and go find Buffalo Bill. Silence of the Lambs, man, it's a classic. Not too many movies sweep, 4 or 5 Oscars every year. Actor, actress, director, movie. This one had screenplay too, so it's a monster. It's definitely the best movie of '91.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hard to argue that one.
Yeah, I love your worst pick too. I completely forgot about that, but you drilled that one back in my brain. That's a classic schlock fest. Yeah. Awesome.
I had 6 of yours, Doc.
Look at that, eh?
Yeah.
What did I say,
only
Brian? 5, maybe 6, buddy.
I only had 4, believe it or not. But I love your underrated stuff like Guilty by Suspicion and Regarding Henry. Good stuff. I knew you'd have T2, so I'm surprised it's high, but
Yeah.
that's a doc flick, so it has to be that high. Good
I knew it would be number 2 for you too.
Did you?
Oh, I know you did, Brian, for sure.
That's a
I
good
knew
call.
it. I was like, I said he won't push Silence out of there, but he will put it in the top 2.
Yeah,
Lamb Chops wins, man. Lamb Chops wins.
a good list.
Thank you.
All right, Brian, let's see what you got there, man.
All right. So number 10 for me, Doc has already touched upon it. The movie with the guy with the worst case of writer's block known to mankind, Barton Fink, playwright who goes out to LA and is given this B-list movie to make, and he struggles to make it, and it doesn't help that they have all these really strange and violent circumstances that just start happening to the poor guy. So I like the cast. John Goodman is great in this. I like and we got Tony Shalhoub's in it, John Maloney.
Yeah.
Got a lot of good guys in there. I like it. It may be one of my least favorite Coen Brothers films, but saying the least favorite Coen Brothers film still better than a lot of other movies that you could actually watch. So that's how I feel. Number 9 for me, I've got JFK here, mostly because of I like the movie. I like the performances by Gary Oldman and Donald Sutherland, I think is great, and Tommy Lee Jones. The length is a little bit too much for me, and that's what kind of drug it down here. And it had Kevin Costner in it. That doesn't help either. But Still, I like the story, and Doc touched on it the perfect way. If you can tell a story 30 years after the fact, and even still today, we could watch that movie and still question in our mind the actual events and the circumstances surrounding them, then you've done something right as a director. So big props to Oliver Stone here. Number 8, I've got Cape Fear here. Robert De Niro and Martin Scorsese remaking the 1962 classic that had Gregory Peck and Robert Mitchum in it. I didn't think you could outdo Robert Mitchum, from the original, but Robert De Niro somehow does that. And when I think about how great De Niro is, you got to think that I think he made this movie and then turned around and made a movie like Stanley and Iris. I mean, so when you think about something like that, a guy who can turn on a complete 360 like that, just an incredible actor. Very young Jennifer Jason Leigh in it. She does a very good job as well. Everybody knows the story. Max Cady's in prison for 14 years. He realizes that his lawyer kind of screwed him over by deliberately tanking his defense, so he comes out to try to exact his revenge in various ways. And great intense movie. You got to kind of psych yourself up to watch a movie like that.
Was it Number Jennifer 7, Jason in that one, Brian, or was it Juliette Lewis?
It was Juliette Lewis.
Juliette Lewis, thank you.
Juliette Lewis.
Thank you for
Sorry, I was thinking about Jennifer Jason. I had her down for another movie.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
Hey, all right. Number 7 for me, I've got The Fisher King here.
Yeah, right on, buddy.
Like you said, Terry Gilliam. I like the movie. Like you said, Bridges did a good job, but I was really impressed with Mercedes Rule in it.
Oh yeah.
Also, Michael Jeter has a small role in it that it's actually very good. Tom Waits is in it in a small role that I think he does a good job. Just Gilliam does these type of movies where they've got that dark, surreal feeling to them, but at the same time, there's always that underlying heartfelt story that comes through, and I think this movie is one of those. Number 6 for me, I've got a documentary here. I've got from Errol Morris. It's A Brief History in Time. It's a documentary based, partially on the life of Stephen Hawking, and also on his the book that he wrote, Brief History in Time, which I've actually read that book. I mean, and I'm not a physicist, and I would absolutely have no interest or understanding of physics in a general sense. But let me tell you, Stephen Hawking does actually write books that the everyday man can kind of understand, and he does a really good job in the book, and Morris does a really good job with the documentary. I like watching it over and over. I can watch it over and over. It's not a big deal to me. It's a very interesting life that Hawking lived, and it's a very interesting book. So
cool.
Number 5, I have Defending Your Life. I got Albert Brooks directed this and starred in it, along with Meryl Streep. I gotta make sure I get my female actresses right. Meryl Streep's in it, right? So what a great premise for this movie. Like, you die and you go to this in-between place to decide whether you get to move on to the next phase of existence, and you have to defend your life. And they base your defense on how much you lived your life without fear, basically, is what it is. And whether you took chances, or whether you tried to aspire to greatness in some way, or stood up to people in intense situations, things like that. And so it's hilarious because of the premise of it. Some people are in and out like within a day because they're so great, and then someone like Albert Brooks has got to stay there for 9 days trying to defend his life. He just can't seem to buy a break. It's hilarious in a typical Albert Brooks kind of style. I think he's a funny guy.
He is.
Some people don't really like his humor. I think he's hilarious. So
yeah.
Number 4, I've got Thelma and Louise here. To me, it's a very interesting movie. I mean, it touches upon a lot of different things. A little bit of friendship, maybe a little bit of LB, GQ type of stuff that's going on. Interesting movie, and these two girls that are on the run basically because they killed a man that was trying to sexually assault one of them, and so they go on the run and they leave, and they didn't have much of a life anyway. They had terrible boyfriends / husbands or living mates, whatever they had, and in the end, rather than be captured, they decide that there's alternatives to that. And we won't spoil the ending for you, but it, you know, involves gravity. We'll leave it right there. So, number two for me, I've got Terminator 2 here, Doc. I know I don't have it as high as you. It is really good though. Like you said, you know, Cameron kind of sets the bar for, you know, science fiction type movies and special effects. And this was such, from a Terminator to T2 was such a huge jump in you know, the ability to have, you know, CGI and things of that nature. I like the story, of course. It kind of gives you that little twist where Arnold was the bad guy in the first. He's not the bad guy the second time around. Robert Patrick is really great villain, you know, in the movie. Kind of plays it straight. Yeah, that's what I like about it, is that it wasn't like this over the top performance by him. It basically played it straight, and it was even more scary that way, I think. So very young, you know, Edward Furlong was in it, which, you know, he ended up having, you know, troubles in his life later on. That was unfortunate for him, but this may be the highlight of his life. So number two, I have Boyz N The Hood here. I think it's a great movie that kind of comments on racism and the plight of you know, African Americans, and especially in big cities. It's hard for us to understand, because sometimes I think we look at our children growing up, and I start to equate success with my kids with how their jobs are going, if they're happy in the relationships. And then you think in this situation here, in a movie like Boyz N The Hood, these are young people who are just simply concerned with staying alive, and for them, living to be the age of 30 would be a monumental thing. Right. And so that just tells you the kind of dichotomy that exists in America for white people versus African American people. And Singleton did a great job of like portraying that. Like you said, very young Cuba Gooding Jr. I love Lawrence Fishburne in this as the strict father who was just trying to bring up his boys right, you know, and do the right thing. So, so we got to do a bad movie now, right? Yeah,
I'll do the bad.
Okay, I did have Oscar on a short list here, and then I also had a movie that it ticked me off. I was going to make it the worst movie because it ruined a movie for me, and that was Highlanders. Highlander 2, I was going to have as the worst movie because I don't know what they were trying to do, but they just screwed it all up. They did, trying to do a sequel to something that didn't even have a script or a thought about being a sequel, because they had gotten a script from a kid who was actually in college. You know, he had submitted it for his class that he was in, and these guys from Hollywood just went and started digging through crates and found his script in there somewhere and made Highlander. So there really wasn't supposed to be a Highlander 2. There wasn't any type of thought process in it. So it was terrible. But in the end, I chose Hudson Hawk. Because this is a legitimate try at trying to make a Hollywood movie and pulling the wool over our eyes, and I didn't really appreciate it at all. I mean, how bad is it when you've got to name the group of bad guys that are in it are all named after candy bars? I mean, really, Kit Kat and Butterfinger and all that other stuff. I just thought that was so stupid, you know. And I can't even tell you what the movie was about, because I don't think it really had a plot. No, it just kind of just trudged along. You know, these guys trying to kill, you know, Bruce Willis the whole movie and fudging things up all the time. So number one, same as Doc's. I can't see us getting around it. Silence of the Lambs. You know, Jonathan Demme does a great job with this movie. I wrote a paper in college about the objectification of women in the movie by all the male characters. I mean, it's beyond Buffalo Bill's objectification of women. And you know, even, you know, Scott Glenn's character in some ways was, you know, objectifying, you know, Clarice in the movie, and it's just little subtle things like that. But it's such a well shot movie. The acting, I can't even say enough about it. I mean, it's put Anthony Hopkins back on the map again. Jodie Foster's career took a big, huge leap forward again. Everything about the movie is just incredible. Shot it, it was supposed to be shot like actually at Quantico Marine Base in Virginia, where they actually have the FBI training is actually on that base, where they actually have a fake town set up. And, you know, that's where they train their agents and everything. They actually have extras in the town who actually portray individuals for certain situations, and that's how they treat their FBI agents and stuff. So really interesting stuff there. Good movie. My number one.
Great pick.
Fantastic pick. Obviously, it's a great list.
Want to make a couple comments. I have not seen A Brief History in Time, so that's one.
Neither have I.
And The Fisher King, I meant to watch it this past week to catch up with it because I only saw it once, so it's not going to make my list. I need to see that again because I'm sure on a second viewing it might go up a few notches. Barton Fink is another one that I love the Coen brothers, but it's just a near miss for me. It was on my honorable mentions, and the same with Thelma and Louise. It was probably my 11th favorite of that year. Just missed. But solid.
Yeah, I
list.
still like your list, buddy, because we had, I don't know how many we hit on there, Brian. What was it? 1, 2,
We did
3,
hit on
4, 6.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
6 out of 10, buddy. And not one Annette Bening crossover. That's
Not
incredible.
one in that betting crossover.
Yeah, you eliminated the Annette Benings and went with everything else. Very cool.
Well, at least you get your females right.
Oh.
We're all allowed
You
to.
know
Listen,
what? I'm getting
if I
old,
had my
guys.
choice.
Getting old.
It would have been Annette Bening
It
in
was a
10 movies.
J.
for
It
me.
was a J girl. It began with J.
Absolutely. All right, let's see what we got. I have like 6 different movies that nobody had, which I kind of thought I would. And yeah, let's maybe at least 5. Number 10, Defending Your Life. Had to make my list. Albert Brooks. I love Albert Brooks movies to begin with. This is one of his best. Brian gave the synopsis here. We're in like a way station in between, determining where you're going to go. Are you going to get another shot, or are you going to go to the next step, the afterlife? Hilarious stuff. Rip Torn is in here as well. I think he's like one of the guys that judges here, I believe. You have to. There's like clips of they replay what you did, screw ups in your past, maybe, and it's really cool.
The past life pavilion was hilarious.
Oh my God.
Find out who you were in your previous life. It
Yeah.
was just hilarious.
It's real inventive, real hilarious comedy in between like a fantasy and a comedy. I really enjoy it. Very interesting and entertaining. So that's going to make my number 10. My number 9 is Rush. This is a movie with Jason Patrick and Jennifer Jason Leigh playing these 2 small town undercover cops, drug agents trying to bring down this major dealer played by Greg Allman of all people. Greg Allman with the long hair of the Allman Brothers. And he's dealing heroin in the bars and stuff. And these guys have to prove that they're the real deal, that they're not cops. They're undercover, of course, and they're shooting up, and they end up getting addicted. They have a love story here. It's real solid, very realistic performances, I think. It's kind of bleak subject matter, but I think it works. Jason Patrick and Jennifer Jason Leigh give really first-rate performances in my book. They're totally believable. You don't even see the acting going on. My number 8 is Cape Fear. Brian had that one as well. Martin Scorsese's remake from the '62 classic with Mitchum and Peck. De Niro, again, another one of these psycho performances. Max Cady. Some of the cringy stuff that he does with Juliette Lewis were pretty intense, twisted in a way. He's an ex-con rapist who gets out. He's seeking revenge on his defense lawyer, played by Nick Nolte, and sort of terrorizes the family. Jessica Lange's the wife, and Juliette Lewis is the daughter, and it goes from there. It's a pretty solid remake, I would say. My number 7 is my sleeper pick here, a movie that I really like a lot. It's called The Man in the Moon, starring a young 14-year-old Reese Witherspoon, her film debut. It's sort of a coming of age, first love, country kind of story. Sam Waterston and Tess Harper play the parents. Real heartbreaking stuff, beautifully told, little gem of a movie. You can tell right from the beginning Reese Witherspoon was going to be an actress to contend with, and she started right from the jump there. My number 6 is Jungle Fever, Spike Lee's follow-up to Do the Right Thing and Mo Better Blues, starring Wesley Snipes and Annabella Sciorra. Interracial kind of relationship, extramarital affair going on here. and the reactions of both family. It explores racism. It's right in your face. There's Spike will tackle these issues and just lay them out, stereotypes, and very blunt with the language. And John Turturro's in here. Holly Berry plays a crack addict. Sam Jackson's in here. Ozzie Davis, Ruby Dee. He's got a nice troupe of characters. You've never seen a crack house like the one in this either. It'll scare the bejesus out of you. He takes you right in the vacant building, and everybody's strung out and laying around and turning tricks, and just real sensitive kind of subject matter here. I think Spike Lee's a wonderful director. It's very stylized the way he films his movies. And it's not a perfect film. It's flawed a little bit, but the timing couldn't have been better. It came out right before the Rodney King fiasco, and then the OJ thing and the trial, and still relevant today with a lot of the cop, the racism that we deal with in this country. My number 5 is Bugsy. Doc had it on his list. Directed by Barry Levinson, starring Warren Beatty, Annette Bening, Harvey Keitel, Ben Kingsley, and Elliot Gould. A real good cast. Story of Bugsy Siegel, the man that, the gangster that really put Vegas on the map. He had a vision of putting legalized gambling and casino out there, and he started the Flamingo Hotel and built it from the ground up. Takes place in the 40s, I believe. Great period piece too. It's got set decoration, and the outfits people would wear in the cars. Everything's authentic. And Beatty is the right person for the role. He's got the charm and charisma that we expect from Warren Beatty. He's so likable, even as a gangster and a killer. You buy into him.
He is.
He really is. My number 4, and it was his baby from the beginning. I understand he wanted to make this film as far back as the 80s, and it took like 10 years to get it off the ground.
Oh.
My number 4 is a Lawrence Kasdan film, Grand Canyon. This is one of the ensemble acting pieces. Kasdan's a great writer, and again, he creates sort of like The Big Chill, where he brings all these actors in and they do their thing. You got Danny Glover and Kevin Kline. Steve Martin's very good in this role. Alfre Woodard, Mary Louise Parker, Mary McDonnell. Those are the 6 main characters, and it's about these intertwining lives, this drama. People come from different lifestyles, different races, and this chance meeting, kind of random philosophies about life. And it's a very talky kind of movie. I think it's brilliantly written, and addresses some social issues as well, homelessness and violence in society, that type of thing. Very underrated, little seen. I don't hear anybody talking about it anymore, but I really liked it when it came out. Solid. My number 3, this is, I believe, a trifecta. JFK. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
Oliver Stone's film about the Kennedy assassination and the conspiracies and the cover-ups and poking holes at everything you can imagine. The Warren Commission, full of shit. It works as a political thriller too, even though what happened. It's not the point. It's who was behind it, and he's throwing everything at the screen. Here, maybe it was this, maybe it was that, maybe it was, and you determine what you think. It's very complex. CIA, mafia, FBI, Cuban,
Mob.
Everybody's involved. The mob. I mean, you can go any which way, or he gives you enough information just to plant it in your brain. It wasn't what the Warren Commission said. Oswald did not act alone. You can throw that right out the window. So this is it's cool to see Gary Oldman too as Lee Harvey.
Lee Harvey.
Yeah.
I mean,
Chameleon.
what a casting stroke of genius that was.
Absolutely. Perfect.
Totally.
Yeah, and I agree with Donald Sutherland, the man on the bench there. He's very effective.
Yeah, he played
Yeah.
Mr. X, right? Was it Mr.
Yeah.
X? Yeah.
And you also have people like Kevin Bacon and Jack Lemmon and Tommy Lee Jones and
Joe Pesci.
Joe Pesci's over the top, but
Yeah.
there might have been a character as crazy as that in this scenario.
Totally.
And of course Costner sort of the usual soft-spoken kind of. He plays Jim Garrison, the New Orleans DA, and he gets fired up at the right time. But I really enjoyed. I give Oliver Stone a lot of credit for taking this subject on and putting it on the big screen. And
I think Brian Doyle Murray played Jack Ruby.
Yeah, he's in here too. Sissy
right.
Spacek, Walter Matthau. I mean, it's
That's
like
right. Walter Matthau.
45
Yeah.
major actors in this movie. My number 2 is
Ed Asner.
Ed Asner. My number 2 is Boyz N The Hood. I think this is a great movie, edged out by our obvious number 1. But
Oh no.
Uh-oh,
this is a trifecta as well. John Singleton.
Wait, oh,
Rich.
hang on a second, Rich. Can you hear us? Hang tight, buddy. You're freezing.
You good?
Oh, you're back.
Repeat
Yeah.
number 2.
Number
Yep,
2
you
is
go right
Boyz N
to
The
Ed
Hood.
Asner. Very good. Next,
Oh,
Boyz
perfect.
in the Hood. Yeah, that's another trifecta.
Another trifecta. Boyz N The Hood. John Singleton, age 24, directed this film. His first film. Powerful.
Young.
Just an unflinching look at life in the ghetto, like Brian said. I mean, it's a tough way to grow up. A lot of them aren't going to make it out of here alive. It's a groundbreaker. A lot of urban stories came out after this. This was really a excellent movie. Can't emphasize that enough. Fleshed out, beautifully written characters, played by Ice Cube and Cuba Gooding. Angela Bassett's in here as well, and Lawrence Fishburne to me is the best thing in the movie. So great film. Worst movie, I agree completely with Brian. Hudson Hawk takes the cake. I don't know what the movie was about. Bruce Willis is in it. Danny Aiello. It's kind of a slapstick at times. It's asinine plot, campy, idiotic. And I was looking at some comments on IMDb. There are people that like this movie, that actually like this kind of film. I think it's complete shit. Avoid it at all costs.
Shit.
Total waste of time. And I don't know how Bruce Willis recovered his career after making that, but he did. He went on to, salvage it and make good films after this, but didn't ruin him. Number 1, of course, Silence of the Lambs, our third trifecta here. Jonathan Demme directs. Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster both win the Oscar. One of the great horror films that I've seen. Classic storytelling, and there's not a wasted scene in this movie. Everything flows beautifully into the next. The plot, unforgettable. Hannibal Lecter and Clarice Starling.
Hope he's back. He's back. There you go.
Back.
Classic storytelling.
Classic storytelling, unforgettable masterpiece. It works as a thriller and as a horror film and as a character study for Lecter and for Clarice. They both have their own little stories to tell here, but I think it's a wonderful film and clearly the best of 91. So we agreed on 80 on Goodfellas, and now we agree on 90 on Goodfellas, and now 91 on Silence of the Lambs.
Nice.
Now, will 92 bring us the same?
I
I
don't
don't
think so.
I don't think
It
so.
might. It might.
No.
These might be the only 2 years of the 90s that we agree.
Yeah, listen. The problem with 92 is we're going to have to choose between 2 heavy hitters.
Yep.
Somebody's got to be number 1.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think all 3 of us are going to pick the same one.
Nah, maybe.
I don't know.
We got
Maybe.
good list. Good list, Rich.
It's a very good list.
I like some of those sleeper. We each had sleeper films, but on our list, and that's what's fun about this. You can put them somewhere on your list. They're not the greatest film of the year, but they're still something that you respect and recommend people go see if they get a chance. Like Guilty by Suspicion by Doc here, and Regarding Henry, and Brian had A Brief History of Time, and The Fisher King, of course. And I like The Man in the Moon a lot, and I like Rush. I think that's a film that people need to see. It's not talked about that much.
Yeah, I don't mind Rush. Rush was on my short list, Rich, just so you know.
Yeah,
Grand Canyon was on my short list, just so you know.
that's another good one.
I think I like the way I went back when I went back and checked things out and stuff like that. I think I liked Grand Canyon more when I was younger than I do now. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, I can see. I need to go back and look at it. It's been a while since I saw it, but I like that style of filmmaking. I think Kasdan does that. He even does it.
Oh yeah.
With Silverado, he's got a great cast in Silverado and The Big Chill, and in this, and of course he did Body Heat, one of my favorite movies.
Oh yeah. I had Dead Again,
I mean,
and The Commitment.
He has a history of his character-driven narratives that he loves to write.
Yes,
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
that's why even when Star Wars was struggling, who did they bring in to write?
exactly.
Kaz-
Lawrence Kasdan. I mean, that's what you
Empire.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, he cleans it up. Thelma and Louise, I wanted to get on the list, but I didn't want to bounce anything else out. So that's why that just missed for me. Two nominated films for Best Picture. None of us had. That would be The Prince of Tides with Nolte and Streisand. Neither one of us had that. And the Beauty and the Beast, the first animated Best Picture nominee. None of us had that.
Prince of Tide's pretty heavy subject matter.
Very heavy. It's not a bad film. I don't want to say
No,
that.
it's not. I mean, it's
Yeah.
not one I'd like to revisit very
Yeah.
often. You know, it's pretty heavy.
If I was doing a
Yeah.
top 20, it would probably be in there in the teens somewhere, but I didn't want to put it in my top 10.
Yeah. And I mentioned there, as you said there, Rich, just before I cut off Brian when I mentioned it there, I said The Commitments and Dead Again were two other ones that I was thinking
Yeah.
about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I'm going to apologize for the glitching tonight for our viewers out there. I don't know what's going on with the signal, but I know I glitched 3 or 4 different times there.
They'll get the idea. They'll go through the list. They'll see it pop up, and then they'll sit there and say, what the hell you doing, Rich? What the hell you doing, Doc? What the hell you doing, Brian? And then say, we'll be sitting there saying, hey, give us your top 10 or whatever. Drop down
probably-
5. Drop
yeah.
down whatever. Give me your top.
I'm probably
3.
going to
I
get a
don't care.
message from Juliette Lewis's agent.
Yeah,
Listen,
Sorry,
you
buddy.
little shit. You better start getting the names right.
begins with a J, God damn it.
It's a J. It's a J.
Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the movie 1991. Make sure you want to check out Brian's perfect album from 1991. We'll be releasing that the same day as this. Leave some comments on both our lists. We appreciate that. We love the feedback and the alternative picks. Not everybody sees these things the same way. They're going to have films that we don't have, and that type of thing. So also we have our music from 1965 through 91. Check all those out, and our movies from 80 up to 91. So appreciate everybody watching. Sorry about the glitching. We'll hope to clean that up in the next little while. So for Brian and Doc, this is Rich. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.